This is the plaintiff, Kira Sunderland. She says she rented a horrible house from the defendant and had to suffer with no heat and a crumbling ceiling, which she thought might come down and hit her in the head. The defendant has violated the law by renting this house, and she's here suing him for the $9,085.10 she's owed. This is the defendant, Timothy Kelly. He says the plaintiff's grossly exaggerating the condition of the house because she's looking to get a big payoff. The ceiling had a crack in it, which he tried to repair, but the plaintiff was uncooperative, and she asked for the heat to be turned off because she was too hot. Oh, her? No way. He's accused of renting a house of horrors.
All parties, please raise your right hands.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Next case on the docket, the plaintiff rented a house from the defendant, says it was in horrible condition, and she's lucky to be alive. But the defendant says the plaintiff is grossly exaggerating the condition of the house, and this is meritless, this case. It's the case of House of Horrors.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
All right, Ms. Sunderland, you are suing, your landlord's represented here by the management company, which is represented by Mr. Kelly, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For $9,000 in rent rebates for different problems that there have been throughout the course of the last, I guess, about a year. Why don't you tell me what happened?
I moved in April of 2019. I've been here 2 years, 10 months. There's been a series of problems, some small and some larger. So what I am asking for is a rent abatement, which is just a portion of what I've already paid to them for the times when the house didn't meet the minimum standards of habitability, according to California laws.
Are you there right now on a month-to-month, or are you in the middle of a lease?
I'm on a month-to-month.
Okay. And has an eviction begun or not, Mr. Kelly?
No, it has not.
I'm kind of surprised because she's on a month-to-month that she's suing you. One would think you would want her out. The owners don't want to evict her?
That's called retaliation.
So, well, it could be, or it could, I mean, once she's done, that doesn't mean that you have to rent to her. So I don't know that that's necessarily accurate, but you know your judges better than I do. And I can understand waiting until this is done. In any event, Ms. Sunderland, according to you, there are three main problems. The first one has to do with heating. So tell me about that. Go ahead.
Okay, there had been electrical problems with the house, and the same summer, the heater was malfunctioning. So I did notify them that the heater, whenever it was a warm day, the heater would come on and blow hot air into an already sweltering house.
Okay.
And you couldn't turn it off. You could not override it, even shutting the whole system off. So when I notified them that there was something wrong, it wasn't fixed, but one of the repairmen, as a favor, just turned the system off.
Bypassed it. All right, so turned the system
He
off.
bypassed it somehow.
So that was fine for the summer, but then we get to October, and what happens?
So in October, I notified them it's getting really cold and I don't have a heater that works. So they did make arrangements to send someone over to fix the heater. He took one look at it and said it can't be fixed. And it was a very fast look. And I said, well, how do you know that? And he said, those are under a recall. Those are dangerous. That has to come out.
Why were they dangerous?
Apparently that they had started house fires. They would overheat.
Okay, so go on.
So that was eventually replaced. So I was asking for a rent abatement during that time when I didn't have any heat. And it was in the 40s. It was cold snap, of course. So he did replace it. But there was, that period of time where I didn't have it. And it should have been addressed in the summer when it was failing.
Okay, and was there, according to you, Mr. Kelly, during that period of time, which is 2 weeks, part of the delay was her fault? Why do you say that?
The contractors, we give the phone number to the contractor to make a schedule with the tenant, and it has to be done on her schedule because she has dogs. She does not want people to go in the property when she's not there. So they have to work around her schedule. So that delays getting the repairs done.
Well,
But like
maybe
she said,
not.
she can put,
Maybe her schedule, she was available the next day. So can you prove to me that 4 or 5 days, as you say, was her fault?
that would be with the contractor that installed the heater, and he's not here.
Okay. Do you have
But
an
again,
affidavit
he
from
also
him?
has to, no, but he also has to order the part and to replace the heater. It was $5,500. It's not something that
Right.
can be replaced instantly. So it does take a couple
No, I
days
understand that. I'm
or a
just
week to
wondering
get
how
that.
much of the delay is her fault and how much of the delay is not her fault. That's all. But at the end of the day, I understand what you're saying. You're going as fast as you can, but as fast as you can, she kind of has a point that maybe we all knew there was something wrong with the heater in the summer, and somebody should have addressed that instead of waiting, kicking the can down the road. All right, so that's the first thing you're complaining about. What's the second thing you're complaining about and asking for a rent abatement?
The second thing was the ceiling was collapsing in the large main bedroom. And I notified them on May 19th. On the 24th, they did say that they could send a handyman over. He came the same day and said it was beyond his scope. Nothing happened for nearly a month after that until June 17th, and they asked to send a contractor over. They asked to send an engineer over. I was available for that as well. An engineer came over, and then nothing happened again.
We're talking about the
I,
ceiling crack, right?
the ceiling crack, yeah, because
Okay.
the ceiling was actually lowering, and the cracks were widening, and the plaster was starting to buckle.
Okay.
It was like the ceiling was coming down. So in July, on the 23rd, the heater guy, the original heater guy, showed up. Nobody gave me any notice he was coming, just pounding on the door to, to check the heater. Because, and then on the 28th, he moved the heater. Because apparently what was going on is the heater had been put on top of the ceiling and was going to come through the ceiling.
Okay.
And the reason why it was doing that is a wall had been removed in that larger bedroom. Apparently it was a weight-bearing wall was removed and nothing was put in its place. So the heater was sitting right there at the place with no support at all. Again, I kept asking, when is this going to happen? And please let me know in advance. On August 12th in the afternoon, Tim called to say that the demolition was going to start the very next morning. I asked him to just delay it for 2 more days. He called me back and he did put it for the following Friday, which is the 20th. And they did come and they did do the demolition.
Okay, and what is it you're asking for a crack on the ceiling from May 19th till August 20th?
Because it was structurally unsafe. And
no, what are you
was,
asking for? You're asking to have half of your rent returned to you. Is that correct?
Right, correct.
Okay, so I need to understand what the deficit during that time was for you. When you say, well, it could have this, it could have that, but it didn't, right?
It didn't, but they put me at risk. The ceiling was several inches lower in that.
Okay, but how did it affect you? You didn't have to move out of the room. You didn't have to. There was nothing that affected.
I did move out. I did. Move
I know you did. That's the third chunk of what you're suing for. We'll talk about that in a second. But before you're moving out of the room, in the months it's taken to have engineers and whatever look at it and figure out what the problem is, how does this affect you? A crack on the ceiling that you should get 50% of your rent back because you're asking for $1,500 a month because there's a crack on the ceiling. You had to move out of your room. Tell me about that.
Well, I moved out during that time once the contractors had indicated that it was unsafe. So I was staying in the guest room. I just didn't move all my items out.
Okay. So now it gets fixed. How long does it take to get fixed? From August 20th to when?
Till September 10th was the last day the workers were there. And then the 11th and 12th, I was moving my items back into the room.
Okay. It appeared as if a weight-bearing wall had been removed. Where did you get that from? You said that, you stated that as a fact a moment ago in the trial. You seem a little less certain in the complaint. Where did you get the idea that was where the problem came from, removing a weight-bearing wall to make 2 bedrooms?
Well, the contractors had said that, but you could also see a seam up both walls prior to this.
Okay.
And a very, kind of a sloppy patch across the ceiling and going down.
Okay.
But it was intact. And you could also see where a doorway had been patched over. It was like they'd taken 2 small bedrooms and removed the dividing wall to make one large one.
Is it accurate that she complained May 19th and the work didn't begin until August 20th? Is that accurate?
Correct. We sent a handyman there. He reported back after looking at it that out of his scope of work that he can do. So he suggested a contractor. At that point, the contractor, we give the phone number on their time that they can schedule with the tenant. It takes time to get that repair. It's not something that can be done overnight. You have to actually, they told us, they have to remove the whole ceiling and start over again because they changed the joist in the rafters. And when I say that the contractor is trying to agree with a time with the tenant, but those contractors aren't here and I don't have an affidavit, you said that I cannot use that. She also can't use it. She claims the contractor said it was going to fall, or the contractor said this, the contractor said this. She can't use that.
Okay. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, I guess is what you're saying. And so go on.
Okay. So on August 19th, contractor went over there with his workers and helped her move all of her stuff out of her bedroom. Never once did she ever tell us that she was not using the bedroom. Okay.
Do you have anything in writing where you tell them that you've moved out because they say it's unsafe?
No, I did not notify them. I was just staying in the guest room, but my belongings were still there.
Because you don't sound to me like someone who goes quietly into the night. You sound like someone who, asserts her rights. All right, so now we're in August 20th. According to her, it takes from August 20th till September 11th that she is physically out of the bedroom and has no use of the bedroom. Are those dates true or untrue, Mr. Kelly?
Well, from our records, we have the 19th, we moved her stuff out of the room.
The 19th of what?
And the works of August.
Okay. When was it concluded? Tell me, I went from the 19th to when?
Okay. And then our records show that it was completed, that the contractors went over there on the 7th and they completed on the 9th.
Now, you're suing for 100% of your rent to be abated during the time you didn't have your bedroom. Is that correct?
Correct.
And
the rest
why
of the house
100%?
The rest of the whole house was affected. Everything is moved into the other rooms. I submitted pictures. The other rooms were full. A bookcase and books in the kitchen, headboard, and the bookcase itself are on the patio.
Is this the crack we were talking about?
Yeah.
It's definitely unsightly, but...
There are other pictures of the ceiling. Actually, it was lower. When you get a whole picture, you can see that it's lowering at the point where it sagged down there.
Okay.
You can see behind the door, that was where
Did you move out during the construction?
Out of the bed. I did not move out of the house.
No. So you lived in the house. So why would it be fair for you to get 100% free rent?
Because the house was not in a tenantable condition. They could not have rented the house like that.
Okay, that explains why you should get something. It doesn't explain why you should get 100%. My question to you is, why do you believe 100% is appropriate if you stayed in the house? It's not should you get something back for, I tend to agree with you that you had too long a loss of whatever it was. And I agree with you, Mr. Kelly, that, hey, sometimes that can't be helped. It's not that we're dragging our feet. It's that you got to permit it. You got this. You got to get the approval. You got to get an engineer. I get that. That doesn't change whether it's livable or unlivable. So we're talking about degrees here is what we're doing. Now, what's your take on what's happening? Like, what is your impression of her case and why she is demanding this stuff? Go ahead.
Well, my sense is that from day one she moved in there, there's a huge list. This is 34 different tasks that she has made for repair requests, some legitimate, some ticky-tack. For over a year and a half she's been there, 34 different requests. So this is not one request for repair. This is an ongoing problem.
Is the number of complaints unusual for the house?
Yes.
Okay.
So if she's not using one bedroom for 10 days, 12 days, okay, she can get a credit for that. That's about 25% of the house. She still had access to the other bedroom. She was the only one living there. She originally moved in with the boyfriend. The boyfriend no longer lived there anymore. He moved out. Don't know why, but Anyways,
Not your business.
not my business.
Right.
But I can guess. But anyways, 25% is what she should get for the bedroom.
He's not picking up what I'm putting down. If I say it's not your business, I probably don't appreciate you saying that. But anyway, go ahead. So go on.
I pick it up now. I apologize.
Ah!
She used the rest of the house, the kitchen, the backyard, the garage, front yard.
May I also make a statement?
Yes.
One of the reasons his saying how many requests there had been is exactly my point. This house has not been properly maintained. Those, like 4 of those requests.
Can I ask you, why don't you just leave this
the
3-bedroom
rat
house that you're living in and go somewhere that is properly maintained? You're on a month-to-month. You have no obligation to stay there if it's so awful. So why don't you just go somewhere else?
It's harder to move with pets, and I like the neighborhood. It's convenient.
Okay.
The neighborhood's great, but there's been everything from rats to some of the requests are small, but I'm required to report things that are a problem. So you can't ask me to give me an old house that's not maintained and then try to fault me for reporting things, especially when they affect habitability.
Okay, so I would like to make a couple of observations. I believe that there is cause for some rent abatement. I do not believe it's the amounts that she's asking for. First of all, on the heater issue, somebody should have looked into the fact that there was a recall and changed the heater and all that stuff back in the summer when the heater was malfunctioning, rather than waiting until someone complains again. So I think she asked for a 50% reduction. I think that's excessive. I think a 33% reduction, because it's a whole house affected, is appropriate. And based on the numbers that I've plugged in, the amount of rebate that I find for those 13 days is $442.83. As for the crack on the ceiling for 4 or 5 months, which required some serious analysis and figuring out, I do not find that she's entitled to anything for during that time. It's a crack on the ceiling. It doesn't affect the habitability of the house. I don't buy that she, had to move to another bedroom, and I don't see how that would entitle her to 50% rent for 4 months. I'm not doing it. That doesn't make any sense to me. As for the amount of time that she had to be outside of her bedroom, and affected by construction or whatever, I kind of understand that. I kind of agree with you, though, that it's not 100%, and that is unreasonable. I agree that with you that it's 25%. So that would be an additional $600, which means I am finding her in her favor in rent abatement in the amount of $1,042.83, which you would have probably gladly negotiated with her. But in your estimation, she got greedy. Now, I understand where you're coming from. And I also understand that I am not a judge in California, and that California has an anti-retaliation law. I understand all that. But that doesn't mean that in a month-to-month tenancy, you guys are stuck married to her the rest of your lives. You need to speak to a lawyer to figure that out and figure out what is and isn't commonly accepted. And, her rights end where her tenancy ends. And her tenancy ends every month with 30 days notice or whatever is required in California.
It's 60-day notice.
60-day notice.
And trust me, that's...
Okay. I just, like I said, I don't know what the custom of your judges are. I understand that, it's different in California. Okay. I've said my piece. $1,042.83. Verdict for the plaintiff.
So the plaintiff prevails in this lawsuit, but gets a lot less than she was seeking. She's probably very upset. She was asking for $9,085. She gets $1,042. Ms. Sunderland, how do you respond to this? How do you feel about that?
Well, it was more than a crack in the ceiling. The ceiling was collapsing. But, I'm glad that I was able to have them uphold the lease, even for a small part.
All right. Well, listen, that's the judge's decision. She carefully considered that. It did look like the roof was, the ceiling was really dipping quite a bit. I can imagine you're being upset about that. Anyway, that's what the judges decided, and that's it. Mr. Kelly, you seem to be okay with that. You felt you could have negotiated that with her? Okay.
That's something that could be handled very simply, where she just made a simple request for that.
I must say, it does seem like it took a while, 3 months, considerable amount of time to get that ceiling fixed. Let me ask you one other question. The judge gave you some instructions and pointers on evicting someone like Ms. Sunderland, who's on a month-to-month rental. And I thought I heard you say, don't be surprised if something like that might be about to happen. Did you say that, or were you saying that to the judge?
Well, we don't just evict somebody, but on a month-to-month tenancy,
an end
we
of
can
tenancy.
end that tenancy with a 60-day notice.
So now that this lawsuit is over and you've kind of settled all of this, do you think the owner might consider ending her tenancy?
I will speak to the owner and ask her what she would like to do.
No predictions. Very interesting. All right. Well, that's been a very fascinating discussion, conversation, and case. Harvey, wouldn't you agree?
Doug, there's a warranty of habitability that's implied in every lease. That means that the place that you rent has to be free of health or safety conditions, and if it's not, you have legal recourse. And that recourse could be undoing the lease or even stopping paying rent.
Are there any activities that you simply refuse to do together?
Yeah, golf. I don't play golf, and I don't think you
find
want
it
me to
boring.
play golf. No, sometimes I've gone in the golf cart with you just because it's a beautiful day and, you know, it's nice to be outdoors.
You're
but
my chauffeur.
not even. I'm actually your passenger, but
That's true. You're usually doing other stuff.
But that's pretty much the only thing you do that I won't do with you. You think there's anything else? Pinball. I'm really not interested in pinball.
There's a few things we've done that we did together that after we started doing them, we kind of regretted doing it together.
Like what?
Like when we went to Las Vegas that one time to the 108th floor of the Stratosphere, and they had these amusement rides on the top, and then you get in these carnival ride things, and you're 108 stories.
You're 108 stories over Vegas.
Right, over the desert.
Right.
And it's swinging you out on the swing. And like, I'm across from you, and all of a sudden we're out there, and we're like, we have 3 kids. This probably wasn't a great idea.
We shouldn't have done that together.
That'll do it for this session of the People's Court. See ya.